To get the written version of this tutorial, use the link on screen now, in the description below, or by going to clubcrochet.com/seagull. Hey there, it's Louie, and in this video I'm going to be showing you the newest addition to our Birb family, the Seagull. I think this guy is just so cute, and of course, just like all our other Birbs, he is not really what it seems. His head is removable, and yeah, he's a little Birb in disguise. Now, this is part of a series of tutorials I'm doing. Here you can see some of them in the background. We have a little owl version and a turkey. You can find all of the Birbs that I currently have by going to clubcrochet.com/birb. But in this tutorial, I'll just be teaching you how to make this Seagull version. Now, this one is going to be pretty easy. I have a few different customizations, like changing the eyes. You can also make it so the head is attached to the body, but we'll talk about all that in just a bit. But yeah, let's get started and talk about what you need for this tutorial. Get out of here, boybs. All right, so for this tutorial, you're going to need the following materials. I'm using all worsted weight yarn and 100% cotton. I'm using the following colors. You're going to need your main color. Now, I like using off-white for my main color because I like using white for the bobble stitch eyes, and I like them to be just slightly contrasting so you can tell where the eyes are and where the skin or, like, you know, feathers are. But you can make the entire body white if you'd like, and do instead of doing bobble stitch eyes, just do eyes flat on the body. So yeah, so this one here is one that I made where it's all white, and this one's made with off-white. But for this tutorial, we're going to be using off-white for our main color. You're also going to need white for the eyes themselves. You'll need yellow, and that's going to be for the beak, the little feet, and then the Birb Beak that's under it. You'll need the color gray for the wings and the tail. And yeah, that's all you need for the colors. Because I'm using all worsted weight yarn, I'm using a size G 4mm crochet hook. You'll also need a darning needle to help you sew in little ends, and a pair of scissors to cut the ends. You'll need a little bit of stuffing for your body and inside the head. And you will need some safety bead eyes. Now, normally I like using 6mm safety bead eyes for the eyes on the outside of our Birb. Here you can see these ones right here. And I like using 6mm eyes for the inside of the Birb. Now, I'm going to be continually using 6mm eyes in this video for the inside Birb, but I want to use 8mm eyes for the outside of the Birb just to see what it looks like, see how different it looks. So we're going to be doing 8mm eyes for the outside and 6mm eyes for the inside in this tutorial. But like I said, you can use 6mm eyes as well. I think it makes them look really cute and derpy, so it's definitely a good choice. Yeah, I think that's about it. One more thing that you need in the materials: magnets. Now, this is not absolutely important. You don't have to make it with magnets, but I really like including magnets in the base of my Birb so that it can connect to anything metal. So, this magnets. Ugh. These are really strong magnets. These come in the crochet kits. If you'd like to get any of my Birb crochet kits, it comes with these little miniature, super duper strong magnets. But you can see it holds it so that you can perch it on anything that is metal. I really, really like using magnets. I think they are a really cool extra little thing. Okay, well, I think that's about it. Without further ado, let's get hooking. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe down below. And yeah, let's get started. Okay, let's start with our wings. Now, we're going to want to make 2 of these different wings, and the main difference is in the last round of the wings. But let's start by making the magic loop. So if you don't know how to make the magic loop, here is my quick tutorial. I do have a longer tutorial, which I'll link right here. For the magic loop, you want to hold the yarn down, facing downwards with your middle and thumb finger, and you want to wrap around your index finger and your middle finger, and then wrap around it again. And you want to make an X on one side and 2 parallel lines on the other side. Okay? Then you want to take this tail end, go between your ring and pinky finger, and pinch it in like that to keep everything held in place. Okay, now we're ready to actually make the magic loop. So we're going to turn it so that the 2 parallel bars are facing towards us. Take your crochet hook, go under the first bar, yarn over the second bar, and pull that under the first one, and then twist it in to make a loop. See how you have a little loop on your crochet hook there? Now you can go over the first bar, yarn over the second one like that, and then pull that second one through the first one to create a chain stitch. There we go, and that's going to keep the yarn locked into place, and you can pull it off of your fingers. Okay, now I'm going to pull this tail end just a bit to close our magic loop a little bit. We're going to work all of our first stitches into this magic loop and then pull it tight with this tail end to keep it closed. Now, we're going to be using this magic loop for pretty much the entire pattern. And most of this pattern is worked in the round, meaning that we're going to work in a spiral without turning. But the wings and the tail, actually, you know what? Now that I say that, the only parts that are worked in the round are the head and the body. So the wings, tail, the legs, or the feet, the beaks, those are all worked flat, meaning that we're going to turn after each row. But when we get to the head and the body, we'll work in the round without turning. Okay, well, let's just start with the wings. I'm sorry, I'm giving a lot of explanation, and I'm really sorry about that. Okay, so for row 1 of the wings, we're going to start by just working 3 single crochets into the magic loop. You go into the magic loop, pull a loop through, yarn over, pull through 2 to make a single crochet. And we want to do 3 of those into the magic loop. So we got 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Now we can pull this tail end, and it will pull this nice and tight, just like that. And we can continue on to row 2. For row 2, we want to turn our piece, chain 2, 1 and 2. And then we want to work into the stitches that we made in row 1, and we want to do a half double crochet increase, meaning 2 half double crochets into each one of these stitches. For a half double crochet, we're going to yarn over and then go into our stitch. Again, we're going to skip our 2 chain stitches there and start into the first stitch right there. And you want to make sure you're under both of those loops. And then we want to yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. That's going to make a half double crochet. Now we want to do a half double crochet increase into each of these stitches, which means that we want to do 2 half double crochets into the same stitch. So let's make another half double crochet into that stitch, yarn over, go into the same stitch that you just worked into right here, yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And there's our first half double crochet increase. We want to do 3 of those total, so let's do our second half double crochet increase right here, yarn over, go into the next stitch right here. Sometimes it can be difficult to get in there, so I'm going to use my nail to help me pry that stitch open, and then yarn over, pull through, and yarn over and pull through all 3 loops for our second, the start of our second half double crochet increase. So there's 1, let's do another one into the same stitch, and 2. And then into our last stitch right here, we want to do 1 more half double crochet increase. We yarn over and go into that last stitch, yarn over and pull through, and yarn over, pull through 2. There's our first part. 1 more into the same exact stitch. Oops. Let's try that one more time. Boom. There we go. Okay, so that's going to be the end of row 2. Now we're going to be making 2 different wings. We want to have a right wing and a left wing. Now both the right and left wing are going to be doing row 1 and 2 the exact same way. So we're going to do this exact thing that we just did twice. Now we're going to start with our right wing, and then we'll make our left wing. So for the right wing, for row 3 of the right wing, we are going to turn our piece and chain 3. So we're going to yarn over and pull through 1, 2, and 3. And then starting in our first stitch right there, we want to do the following repeat. The following repeat actually includes this chain 3. So the repeat is we chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we slip stitch 1 into the next stitch, which is going to be right here. We're going to skip these chains and slip stitch into the stitch. So for a slip stitch, we're just going to yarn over, pull through, and pull through the loop on the hook. So that's going to be the first of our repeat. We want to do 3 of those in a row. So there's 1. Let's do a second one. We chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Slip stitch into the next stitch right here. Yarn over, pull through, and pull through. There's 2. Let's do 1 more. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. slip stitch into the next right here. Okay, so there's our 3 repeats, and you can see we're making our 3 little feathers. And now to finish up row 3, we want to do 3 slip stitches, a slip stitch into the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3 more slip stitches. Let's go into the next stitch, pull through and pull through. Next stitch, through, through. And then one more right here. Pull through and pull through. Okay. To finish this up, you can cut the yarn. This is, again, just for the right side of our wings. You want to cut the yarn, and we can just pull it all the way through like that. Okay, and we're going to sew this onto the side of our burb a little bit later on. Now I'm going to go ahead and get started onto our second wing. I'll do the first 2 rows just like I did for the right wing, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how to do the left side of the wing. So let's put this to the side, and I'll get started on the second bit, and I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so I've just finished row 2 again, and now we're going to do row 3L for the left wing. For this, we're going to turn our piece, and we're going to just chain 1 this time instead of doing our chain 3. Now we want to do our the first part we want to do is 3 slip stitches. So we're basically doing what we did on our other wing backwards. So we want to start with our slip stitches. So we chain 1, and we want to do 3 slip stitches. There's 1, 2, and 3. And now we want to do our chain 3 slip stitch 1 repeat 3 times. So we'll chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. Slip stitch into the next stitch right here. And we're going to repeat that 3 times total, so 2 more times. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, slip stitch into the next stitch. And then 1 more, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, slip stitch into the next stitch right here. Okay. And now we can cut the yarn. You want a pretty, not like too long, that's probably just fine. And just pull it all the way through. Okay, now before I continue on to the next part, we do want to hide this end over to this side because we want both the tail ends to be coming out of the same bit. Okay, so see how this one's coming out of this side of the wing in the center? We want this one to have this tail end coming out through this side of the wing. So what we need to do is we kind of need to hide it into the piece until it comes out from over there. So we'll go ahead and thread it onto our needle. And there's a few different ways you can do this. I kind of like just going around the outside a little bit, like this. I don't know, there's different ways we can do it, but let's just go around and around and around till I get to the end. Let's see, and see how that looks. I kind of switch it up how I do this like all the time. Actually, now that we're at these center stitches, I'm gonna try to go through the middle of this bit to get through there. I'm just gonna go but this is really dealer's choice. You can do it however you would like. There we go. Now I don't want to pull it too tight because if I pull it too tight, it'll crimp in this end and I don't want that to happen. So I kind of want to be a little bit more fragile with it. But once we're pretty close to over here, like let's go with like right there. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that's good. We can make that work. Okay, so that should be good. And now we can put this to the side and we'll come back to this when we make the body of our burb way later on in this video. All right, the next thing we want to do is make our tail. And our tail is kind of tricky. It's all made in one row, so you don't need to do turn or like finish the row or anything like that. It's all made in just one row around a magic loop. So we're going to start by making a magic loop. So let me get started with that. And this is just going to be a series of stitches. We're basically going to be working up slowly getting taller stitches. So going single crochet, half double crochet, they're slowly going to get bigger. And then we're going to do a point, pull it down in, then go back up and do the growing stitches backwards. So we're going to go from big stitches to little stitches. So let's just go one stitch at a time, and you might want to like pause between stitches if I'm going too quick for you. All right, so we're going to start by doing a single crochet into the magic loop. There's one single crochet. Then we want to do a half double crochet into the magic loop. So we yarn over, into the stitch, pull through, and pull through all three. Then we want to do a double crochet. For double crochet, we yarn over, we go into the stitch, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over, pull through just 2 loops, yarn over again and pull through the last 2 loops. Then we want to do a triple crochet. For triple crochet, we yarn over twice. So 1, 2, into the stitch, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over and pull through our final 2 right there. So we've got a single crochet, half double, double, and then a triple. Now we want to do something that I call the mini picot. To do that, we chain 2, 1, 2, and then into the back loop of the first chain that you made, the second chain from the hook, you want to slip stitch 1. So we turn it kind of a little bit on its side so you can see that little bump there on the back, right there. And we want to get our crochet hook in there. I find it's easiest to do this with by helping it along with your nail of your hand. So I'm just going to kind of help my crochet hook in there. And then once my crochet hook's into that back loop, we yarn over and do a slip stitch. So pull through and pull through. And that's going to make our little point at the end. Okay, so now we want to chain 2 and do a slip stitch into the magic loop. So 1 chain, 2 chains, and then slip stitch into the magic loop. Okay, so there's the first half of our tail done. Now we want to do basically the same thing but backwards. So first we want to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we want to do another mini picot. So we want to chain 2 more, 1, 2, and to that second chain from the hook, skip our first chain, and we want to slip stitch into the back loop of that second chain right here for another mini picot. There we go. Yarn over, pull through, and pull through for a slip stitch. Okay, now we want to do those stitches working from treble crochet down to single crochet one by one. So we're going to start by doing our treble or triple crochet. Yarn over twice, 1, 2, go into the loop right here, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over and pull through your last 2. Now we want to do a double crochet into that magic loop. So we yarn over, go into the magic loop, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. Then a half double crochet, yarn over, into the stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. And then finally a single crochet, go into the stitch, yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Okay. And then the last thing that we want to do is we can pull this nice and tight so that the hole closes. And then we can cut the yarn. You need a somewhat long end, but not too bad, just about like that. And just pull it all the way through your stitch. You don't need to do a chain or anything, just pull it all the way through. And there we go. I like to pinch the little points there. But now we have our tail and our wings done. We can put those to the side and we can continue on. We're going to be making our large beak next. Okay, so for our large beak, we're going to be wanting to use the yellow yarn. And basically what we're making now is this part that goes over this smaller part here. This little part is actually a stitch that we're going to be making while we make the face. And then we're going to sew this part that we're about to make over that stitch. Okay, So for your large beak, you want a somewhat long end, just so we have something to sew it, to double knot it onto the face. And we want to start by making a slip knot, like so. Okay, and then we'll get a crochet hook in there. And then to start your large beak, we're going to chain 4. So yarn over and do 4 chains. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Starting in the second chain from the hook, we're going to single crochet 1, and then single crochet 1 into the next chain as well. So total 2 single crochets starting in the second chain from the hook. 1, 2. Then in the third chain from the hook right here, we want to do 3 single crochets into the same chain. So 3 single crochets. So there's 1 into that chain, 2, and 3. Now your piece should kind of naturally be turning around now. What I call this a pivot. So we turn our piece 180 degrees, and then we're going to work our stitches into the same places that we made our single crochets before we did this 3 single crochets into 1 stitch. We want to work 2 more single crochets into the bottom of the chains in the same chains that we worked our first 2 single crochets. I also like to work around this tail end as I do that. So I'm going to take my crochet hook, find where that first single crochet or the next single crochet is worked into. You can see how that V is working into a little hole right there. We're going to go right into that space, yarn over, pull through, and pull through 2. And see how I'm working around this little knot to keep it hidden in there. Now we want 1 more single crochet right here into the last chain. Pull through, yarn over, and pull through 2. And that's going to be the end of row 1 for your large beak. Now we can turn our piece. And for row 2, we turn and chain 1. Now we're going to be working into the stitches that you made from your last row. And we're going to start by single crocheting 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we want to do, working into the exact same stitch, we want to do a single crochet, a mini picot, and a single crochet. 2 single crochets total, all into that stitch. You can see I'm kind of like stretching it out so you can see white through there. So we want to do 1 single crochet into this next stitch, then our mini picot. So we chain 2, 1, 2, and work into the back loop of the first chain that we made. And then when I get into that one, I really like to pull this one nice and tight, and then slip stitch 1. And then working into the same stitch, you want to single crochet 1 more. Basically, it's an increase with a mini picot in between. Okay, and now to finish this up, we want to do 3 more single crochets into our last 3 stitches. I mean, 1 single crochet into each stitch, but 3 single crochets total. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, that's going to be our large beak made. Now we can chain 1, cut the yarn. You don't need too long of an end. That's probably just fine. And just pull it all the way through. Okay. And then the last thing that I like to do for this bird beak, you can do this later on as well, is I want to yarn over with this inside tail on a, put it through a little needle. And then I want to come out through the bottom right here, right through the center, just so that it's centered and easy for me to sew it onto the face. Okay, so we have our large beak made now. We can place that to the side. Next up, we want to be making our feet for our birb. Now, you're going to make 2 of these, and we're going to start by making a slip knot. And place our crochet hook in there. And we want to chain 3. So we're going to yarn over, pull through. There's 1, 2, and 3. And now we want to pull this really tight, and that's going to create a little point there at the end. And in the first chain that you made, working into the back loop, just like how we did on our mini picot. So we want to, this is going to be the top loop, there's the bottom loop. I want to turn it to the side, find that little spine loop, Get your crochet hook in there. Again, you might want your nail to help you pry that open, or a needle to help you out. And we're going to do a slip stitch into that chain. So yarn over, pull through, and pull through. It's going to create a little point. Now we want to chain 2, 1, 2, pull it nice and tight, and work another slip stitch into that same spot that you just did a slip stitch into, right there. Pull through and pull through. And we're going to do that one more time. Chain 2, 1, 2, pull tight, work into that same hole right there, pull through and pull through for a slip stitch. Finally, you want to yarn over and chain 1. Then we can cut the yarn and just pull it all the way through like that, and pull it nice and tight. So we're going to go ahead and make 2 of these feet. Before, I really like to pinch each of these little points to make sure that they're really like pointed like that. And then this is actually the bottom of the foot, and this is the top. I think the top just looks a little bit cleaner than the bottom. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and make 2 of those. I'll make my second one, and then we will make our Birb Beak, and then we can finally start working on the head. Okay, so I have my second foot made. I'm just going to go ahead and pinch each of those ends there. And then the last thing that we need to make is our Birb Beak. Now, you don't have to make this if you want to make the head attached. So if you want the head attached to the body, then you don't need to make this, because we're making this part right here, the little Birb Beak that goes under the head. So again, you don't need to make this if you're making it attached, but if you are not making it attached, here's how you do it. You want to start by making a slip knot, just like we did for our feet. And also like we did for our feet, we want to start by doing 3 chains. 1, 2, 3. And working into the back loop of the first chain you made. You don't need to pull it tight this time because we don't need a point. Just going to go into that back loop of the first one we made, and we want to do a half double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, and then go into that back loop right here. Get your nail to help you pry that open. Then yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops on the hook for a half double crochet. And finally we can chain 1, cut the yarn, and just pull it all the way through. There we go. Now we have our little Birb Beak to sew onto the body later on. We'll go ahead and put that to the side. And we can finally start working now on the head of our seagull. So I'm going to be starting by using my off-white yarn here. And like I said, I'm using off-white because I want to still have my white yarn so that there is just a little bit of a difference, so that you can tell the white from the off-white. Just because our seagulls are normally white, so I don't want it to be like him not to be white, but I do want it to be distinguishable where the eye is and then where the body is. So I am going to be using 2 different colors here, but they're hard to tell, and I can tell that in the video that they're going to be difficult to see. So yeah, I'm sorry about that. Okay, we're going to be starting by making a magic loop for the head. And the head is going to be worked in the round without turning. So you don't need to turn for this entire piece. And we're just going to keep working around in a spiral. I'll go ahead and get our stitch marker ready so that I can keep track of the ends of the rows, so you can keep track with me. All right, so for the head, we're going to start by doing 6 single crochets into the magic loop for round 1. So we're just going to do 6 single crochets into this magic loop. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now we can pull this tail end nice and tight to close that end up. And we'll grab our little stitch marker here, pull our loop out a little bit, and I'll place my stitch marker in there. I'm trying to get better at using stitch markers in my videos. Normally I don't really use stitch markers. I just keep track of where the ends of the rounds are mentally. But I think it's better for videos if I keep track of them using a stitch marker. Okay, so now I'm on to round 2. For round 2, we're going to be continually working in a spiral without turning. We're going to start into our first stitch right here, Go ahead and get our crochet hook in there right now. And we're going to go ahead and do an increase into each stitch all the way around, meaning that we want to do 2 single crochets into every one of these stitches. This is going to bring you up from 6 stitches to 12 stitches. For your first stitch though, I want to work around this tail end. So keep that tail end in between, and we're going to do an increase. We're going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. There's 1, do it into the same stitch. Oopsies. The same stitch, we'll do another single crochet. There's 2. Now I've worked around the tail end enough so we can just pull it to the side. And again, we want to do an increase just like that into every stitch around. So there's 1 increase. It's going to be 6 increases total. There's 1 stitch and 2 stitches for our second increase. And because we're doing 6 increases total, we're doing 12 stitches total because each increase consists of 2 single crochets. Here is our 4th increase. Here's our 5th increase. So this is going to be our 9th stitch and our 10th stitch. And to the last stitch, we want to do our very last increase. We'll pull a stitch marker out first and do an increase. 1 and 2. That's going to be the end of round 2. You should have 12 stitches around now. Get our stitch marker in there. For round 3, we're going to be doing 3 single crochets and then an increase. And we're going to repeat that 3 times total to bring your stitch count up from 12 to 15. So 3 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, and then an increase. And we're going to repeat that 3 times in a row. Okay, let's start it. 3 single crochets. There's 1 and 2 and 3, and then an increase into the next right here. 4 and 5 for the increase. And we're going to repeat that 3 times in a row. So let's do our second repeat. 3 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, and then our increase right here. 4 and 5. Let's do one more of those repeats. 1, 2, 3, and then to this last stitch, let's pull our stitch marker out there. We'll do an increase into this last one. 4 and 5. Pull that out, add our stitch marker, and keep on keeping on. Okay. Before I continue to do round 4, I want to take my needle and thread it onto our tail end here. And then I like to pull this through the very center of the piece right here to come out through the top. And then I like to cut it nice and close like, let's go with like that. And what I'm basically making there is this little tuft of yarn at the top to make it look like a little bit of feathers coming off the top of its head. I just think it looks really cute. Obviously, that's not a necessity, but I mean, you know, it's so cute. I like to do that. I like to like poke it down like that so it threads the stitches a little bit, or the threads. Okay. So now we are on to round 4. Round 4 is nice and easy. We're just going to do a single crochet into each stitch around, and there should be 15 stitches total. So we're just doing a single crochet all the way around. Now, really quick, as I'm finishing up this round 4, if you like this video, here's my secondary plea. Please like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. I come out with new tutorials just like this all the time. So yeah, I really think I think I like doing what I'm doing, and if you like it, you know, prove it. Prove it. All right, so here's the last single crochet. 15 single crochets total. Put our stitch marker back in there. Okay. Now for our next round, it's going to be a little bit difficult. We're going to be doing things called a bobble stitch and a spiked bobble stitch for to make the eyes and to make the Birb beak that goes under the long this beak right here. Not the Birb beak. The small beak that's going to go under is made with something called a spiked bobble. That's this one right there. So You don't have to do these bobble stitches if you don't want to. You do have to do the spiked bobble, but you don't have to do the bobble stitches, and you can make it flat instead. So if you would like to make your face flat like this, replace these bobble stitches with just single crochets in the same color, so you don't have to change to white for the bobble stitch. But I am going to be doing the bobble stitches. And before I do that, let's grab our white yarn. And I'm just going to pull this tail end out just a little bit so that this stitch still has two ends on it, like that. And what you want to do is take your white yarn and place it in between the two loops on the hook and the yarn attached to the ball, like that. And we're just going to crochet around this white yarn to finish up that last single crochet of that last round, so that this is locked in place under it. Okay, once you have that locked in, we're going to be doing our first mini bobble stitch into the next stitch for the first stitch into round 5. Okay, so for our mini bobble stitch, we're going to yarn over with our new color, white, then go into the next stitch, which is going to be right there, then yarn over again with white, pull that through the loop, or through the stitch, yarn over again with white, and pull through 2 loops on the hook. Now we want to repeat that process 3 times total. So there's our first repeat. Let's do it again. Yarn over, into the same stitch you just worked into, yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through 2. It's very important that all these stitches go into the same place. So there's our second repeat. One more repeat. Yarn over, into the same stitch, yarn over, pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2. Okay, now you should have 4 loops on the hook now. 1, 2, 3, 4, which means that your mini bobble is done. And you can yarn over, you can switch yarns to our main color, our off-white, yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook, like that. That'll finish up our first mini bobble for our first eye. For the next stitch, we want to do a single crochet using our main color. But before we pull through with that, we want to grab our yellow yarn, because now we're going to do a spiked bobble, which is very similar to the mini bobble, but with a mini picot in between. I'm just going to keep my white yarn in place right there. I'm going to yarn over with our off-white yarn and pull through the 2 loops around our yellow yarn to keep it into place. Okay, now I'm going to place these colors like a little bit to the side. Oh, let's do that again. I pulled the yellow yarn through. We need to keep it into place. Let me try that again. I pulled it and it came out. There we go. It's really important that you hold it down with your index finger, the yellow yarn I mean, so that it doesn't get pulled out the way I did it. Okay, so for a spiked bobble, the first 2 steps of the spiked bobble are the exact same as the mini bobble. We're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2. And we're going to repeat that one more time. Yarn over, into the same stitch, pull through, and pull through 2. Now you want to do a mini picot while all this is still on the stitch. So we want to yarn over and chain 2, only using that first loop. So 1 and 2, and then into the second chain from the hook, working in the back loop only, right there, you want to slip stitch 1. So we're going to take your crochet hook. I often need my nail to help me pry open that slip stitch just like that. Yarn over, pull through, and pull through the first loop on the hook like that. That's going to create a little spike in between the mini bobble. To finish up the spiked bobble, you want to do one more of those repeats in the center, or in the same stitch. So we yarn over, go into the exact same stitch, yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through 2 loops on the hook. 1 and 2. Now you should have 4 loops on the hook. We can take our off-white yarn, go under, yarn over, and pull through all the loops on the hook with off-white. Okay, and that's going to be the end of our spiked bobble. I always like to pull this yellow one to kind of pull that spiked bobble a little bit tighter. Now we'll do a single crochet into the next stitch, working around both the white and the yellow. Here's our next stitch. Yarn over the off-white, pull through, and pull through 2. Okay. Now we don't need our yellow yarn anymore. I'm just going to pull it to the side. I'll cut it after this round, but I'll just keep it to the side for right now. We do need our white yarn, however, so what we're going to do is do another mini bobble stitch into the next stitch using our white yarn for our second eye. So we yarn over with white, we go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, and pull through 2. And we're going to do that. We're going to do that 3 times total. So there's 1, 2, and 3. We should have 4 loops on the hook. Switch over to our off-white, yarn over, and pull through all the loops with off-white to finish our second mini bobble stitch and our second eyeball. Now we can single crochet into the next stitch around this white yarn, just to keep it locked into place. Pull a little tight, and now we can cut our white yarn and our yellow yarn. We are actually done with, we're done with both colors. I think all we need to use for the rest of this piece is off-white, which is pretty nice. Okay, now for the rest of this round, round 5, we want to do single crochets all the way to the end. Now we want 10 single crochets total. We already made the first one, so we want 9 more single crochets to get to the end of the row, or round rather. And that's going to be, you should have 18 or 15 stitches still at the end of round 5 here. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, pull our stitch marker out, and 10. There we go. Pull this out a little bit, add our stitch marker in there. Okay. All right, so that'll be the end of round 5. For the next 5 rounds in a row, round 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, you want to do a single crochet into each stitch all the way around 10 times in a row for 5 rounds in a row. 15 stitches for each round. So let's do our first round here, because it can be a little bit tricky to figure out where you're going to put these single crochets, but it's going to be just these V's at the top of our stitches right there. Make sure that you're under both of the loops, just like normal. So under the first one right here, and just single crochet 1. We're just going to do single crochets all the way around for 5 rounds in a row. And still, there should be 15 stitches per round. Now, really quick as I get going here, if you really like the patterns that I make, and you would like to consider supporting my channel and getting a whole bunch of extra stuff, consider becoming a Club Crochet member. Members get early access to future videos that I do. They get exclusive access to patterns just like this one. So there are a bunch of patterns just like this one in the library that you can have access to. I'm actually going to keep my stitch marker in there so that we know where our first of the 5 rounds of single crochets is. I'm just going to work around that stitch marker for our next round. Memberships also get monthly kits mailed to their door each month with all the materials that they need to make whatever we're making that month. So last month we made an octopus that was really, really cool, an octopus and a squid. We actually we added a whole bunch of patterns to the library this last month, including a pirate hat, a squid, an octopus. Yeah, I've been making a lot of patterns really often. Each of these patterns also come with PDF tutorials and a full video tutorial as well. If it is a Club Crochet pattern, it's got a video tutorial too. Just like this one. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and continue on single crocheting here and finish up our 5 rounds of single crochets, and I'll be back when I'm done, and we can go ahead and add the face. Okay, and this is going to be the last stitch of our rounds of single crochet repeats. I can go ahead and place my stitch marker in there, just like that. So you should have 5 rounds of single crochets. A really easy way for you to tell that is if you look up from where the eye or the beak is, you can count up your rounds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 rounds of single crochets. Now, before I continue into our next round, let's go ahead and add the face of our pigeon. I mean, not our pigeon, our seagull. And like I said before, we're going to start by adding our eyes, and I'm going to be using 8mm eyes instead of my normal 6mm eyes. I haven't used 8mm eyes for a birb yet, so I'm really curious to see how this looks. If I don't like it, I'll go back and I will grab some smaller eyes to add in there. Now, to add the eyes, it's really not that tough. What you need to do is find your mini bobble stitch, okay? Or where your mini bobble stitch was, if you want to do it like flat like that. Just skip 2 stitches away from the nose, so 1, 2, and then do it on the outside. But in the mini bobble stitch, we want to find these 3 parts. See how they're 1, 2, 3? And you want to choose if you want your mini bob or your eyeball to be on the inside of the eye or on the outside of the eye. If it's on the outside, he'll kind of be looking 2 different directions and look really goofy. Kind of like this. I like doing the outside of the eyes usually. If you want to put it on the inside of the eye, he'll kind of be looking a little bit cross-eyed, but pretty much straight on. Let's try doing the inside of the eye just to see what happens. So you want to find these 3 parts, 1, 2, 3, and you want to go in through the between the first and second, or in between the second and third if you want on the outside, but we want on the inside. So we're going to go in between the first and second so that it's closer to the inside. You're going to take your needle and separate a little bit those bobble stitches, or those parts of those bobble stitches. See how I made a little bit of a gap there? I'm going to take your needle, kind of gap it, make a little bit more of a gap so that you have a space to place your eye. And you want to place it in there, and I basically just wiggle it like this, and I'm feeling it on the inside to make sure that it goes through the stitch fully. Here you can see it kind of coming out through the inside. Maybe a little bit more. That's pretty good, actually. Oh my god, that's so cute. Whenever I use the bigger eyes, I always think, oh, it's so cute. All right, so before I lock it into place, I always like to get the second one in place first. And for the second one, we're going to do the same thing, but opposite, so that it's more inside. So here we have our 3 separators, 1, 2, 3. We want to go in between 2 and 3, like that. And do the same exact thing. So we're going to take our little needle, kind of just stretch it out there to make a little opening. Take your eyeball, and then just wiggle it in. Lock it down a little bit. And oh my gosh, that's so cute. Okay, so we have our 2 eyes in place there. I really like the placement of them. So we can take the locking mechanism and go ahead and place it on the inside part. And just lock it into place. Just 1. And 2. Okay, so we got our eyes in place. Next up, we want to sew on our large beak over it like that, so that it makes a big beak and a little beak. So we have our 2 ends here. Remember how we pulled this center end through the very center? Let's thread that on our needle first, and go through the very center of the spiked bobble right there at the very top. And then with the other end threaded on a needle, we'll go through the, I guess if the pigeon's facing you, the right side right here, and come out through the left side right there. And then I like to go around this this end, this stitch on the other side of the beak, then back through where you came in, and then back out through where you started. And pull it nice and tight there. And then let's pull this end tight as well. And then I like to go around the very first stitch that you have right here, and then back in through the same stitch. Like that. Pull it nice and tight. I like to pinch that little inside spiked bobble. And yeah, it's in place. You can see how it makes a little upper beak and lower beak, like he's like, oh. And now we can double knot these on the inside to keep this large beak into place. 1. And 2. You can cut these ends. Nice and close. Place those threads to the side. And now we have the face of our pigeon all done. And I gotta say, those big eyes are really cute. Oh my goodness. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna make sure that I have a little bit more room here by stretching it out and more centering the large beak. But yeah, I think that's pretty freaking good. All right, so let's continue on in our piece. We are on to round 11 now of our head. We could pull this, take our, oh wait, no, we can leave our stitch marker in there. Okay, so for round 11, we're going to be working into the front loops only of the next stitches. So if you look at the top of our stitches here, this is under both loops. We only want to work under, boom, this front loop only for all of these next stitches. And we're going to do the following repeat. We'll chain 1, oopsies, let's get my yarn prepped again. There we go. We want to chain 1 and then slip stitch 1 into the next stitch. Again, working only under that front loop. So chain 1, slip stitch 1, and we're going to continue doing that all the way around. So we chain 1, slip stitch 1, chain 1, slip stitch. And this is going to create a nice little frill in between the head and the body. And in our next part, we are either going to, you can continue around to make the head attached to the body so that they are the same piece, or we can finish up this piece and have this little head part separated so that we can add our little burb under it. Now, I personally really like adding the burbs to our piece, not only because I think it's not much more work, but also because it's funny. And you can't even tell, honestly. Chain 1, slip stitch 1, chain 1, and slip stitch 1. Pull our stitch marker out there. And our last one, chain 1, and slip stitch 1 into that front loop only. See, we have this little frill between the head. Okay, so now we want to, you can either make the head attach to the body instead of the burb underneath, the secret agent burb as I call it. If you want to do that, you want to continue from round 6 on the body, working in the back loops only from round 10. So that means that we want to work only into these back loops that you made previously right here, and continue on starting from round 6 of the body of the burb. Now round 6 will be single crochet 4 and increase 1 repeated 3 times around. So we're going to go into these back loops and we would do 1, 2, 3, 4 single crochets and then an increase, and we'd repeat that around to get to 18 stitches around. Now we'll get to round 6 on the body in just a bit, but I'm not going to be doing that. Instead, I'm going to be making the burb separate from the head. So to do that, I'm going to cut the yarn and pull it through, and then thread our tail end on our needle. And then we're going to do a hidden end. So I'm going to go through the back of our first chain 1 slip stitch bit right here. and then go in through where this end is coming out. So right through there, and then find some ends on the inside of our piece where we can hide it. Oops. That, we'll do one more right there. Go and pull that through, and you want to make sure that this kind of replicates the tops of those stitches, so you can't really tell where the end is. And then we cut the yarn nice and close. And let's go ahead and straighten our birb beak a little bit. There we go. We have our head done for our seagull. Now we can place this to the side. Oh my gosh, I love the big eyes. And we can continue on by working on the Birb body. Okay, so for our Birb body, we're going to continue on by working in this off-white yarn. And we're going to start with a slip knot, as we've done before. And actually, our first few rounds of our Birb body is actually made the exact same as the head. So for round 1 of the Birb body, we're going to be single crocheting 6 into the magic loop. So I'll go ahead and just do that real quick. 6 single crochets into the magic loop. And our Birb body is going to be worked around in the round, so you don't have to turn for any of the Birb body, just like you did for the head. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll pull that tight. That'll be the end of round 1. For round 2, just like the head, we want to do an increase into each stitch around, and we want to make sure that we work around this tail end as we do it. That's going to bring you up from 6 stitches to 12 stitches for the end of round 2. So I'm just going to go ahead and power through this, since I've already shown you how to do this in the head of our seagull. 1 and 2, and just keep doing increases into each stitch all the way around. 1 and 2, and then 1 and 2. There we go. And that's going to be the end of round 2 for our Birb body. We can place our stitch marker in there. And now is where we deviate from the head pattern. We're going to be doing some different stitches now. All right. So for our next 2 rounds, rounds 3 and 4, 2 rounds in a row, we're going to do a single crochet into each stitch. Nice and easy, just a single crochet all the way around for 2 rounds in a row. And there should be 12 stitches per round. And after I finish these rounds, I'm going to pull this tail end through the top of the head again, just like how I did on the head of our seagull. So that way we have a little tuft of hair that's under the seagull's head as well, just because I think it's really funny. And I'm going to pull our stitch marker out. That's going to be the end of round 3. We'll just keep going around for round 4. And I'm just going to memorize where the end of that round is, so I don't have to place the stitch marker in and then take it out, since it's only going to be 12 stitches. Okay. Just about done here. A few more stitches. And this is going to be our last stitch. That's going to be the end of round 4. Put our stitch marker in there. Okay. And now we can take this tail end, thread it on our needle, place it in through the top of the head, the very tippity top, like that, and pull it through. And then I like to cut it nice and close to make a little tuft of hair on the inside of the birb as well. Okay. Now we're on to round 5. Get our stitch marker prepped. For round 5, it's pretty easy. We're just going to be increasing up to 15 stitches around. For round 5, all you got to do is do 3 single crochets and then an increase repeated 3 times a row. So that's actually going to be the exact same as round 3 for the head of the seagull. So 3 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, and then an increase, 4 and 5. This should bring us up to 15 stitches. So this is 6, 7, 8, and then 9 and 10. One more repeat of that. 11, 12, 13. Get our stitch marker out here. And this is going to be 14 and 15 into our last stitch. 14 and 15. Pull our stitch marker out and get our stitch marker back in. And that's going to be the end of round 5. For round 6, we're going to be increasing up yet again. Now this is the round where we'll be connecting if you wanted to make the head attached. So we're basically going to be about right there. And so if you were making the head attached, you would instead, you wouldn't have made any of this part. Instead, you would just continue on in these back loops and doing the following stitches. So the following stitches are, for round 6, single crochet 4 and then increase 1 repeated 3 times in a row. So single crochet 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then an increase, 5 and 6. And we want to repeat that 3 times in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then an increase, 5 and 6. One more of those. This is going to bring you up from 15 stitches to 18 stitches by the end of round 6. 4, pull our stitch marker out, and increase, 5, 6. Pull our stitch marker out again. Okay. For our next round, round 7, we're going to be doing 11 single crochets, and then we're going to do an increase, and then 2 single crochets, and then another increase, and then 2 more single crochets, and then a final increase. So first, single crochet 11. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 and 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Now we want to do an increase into the next stitch right here. 1 and 2. And then 2 single crochets. 1, 2. And then another increase. 1 and 2. And then 2 single crochets. 1, 2, and then finally pull a stitch marker out, 1 last increase into this last stitch, 1 and 2. Pull a loop out, add our stitch marker back in, and you should now have 21 stitches around for your burb. Okay, that's going to be the end of round 7. For round 8, we're just going to do a single crochet into each stitch around. This is the perfect opportunity for you to count your stitches and make sure that you are on track. So this is my 3rd, 4, 5. Again, you should have 21. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then we did our first increase in the round before, so we got 12 and 13. And there's 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Pull our stitch marker out and do our last stitch right here for 21. Okay, so that'll be the end of round 8. And now now we're going to be making the Birb's head. Now you would skip this if you've already made the head attached, obviously, because we wouldn't have to add a secondary head under it if you have made this attached. But I didn't do that. So I'm going to be making, sewing on our Birb's head now. We're going to start by adding the Birb Beak, which is this little bit that's got this rounded end. It kind of looks like a little U maybe. So we're going to thread on one of our 2 ends here. And this does have a top and a bottom. This is the top and this is the bottom. Now, to be completely honest with you, I don't think it totally matters which is the top and bottom for this part. But if you would like to make it exactly like I'd have, this is going to be the top. And we're going to thread on the right hand first. And for the placement of where it's sewn on, you want to find the first increase that you made in round 5. So if you look into round 5, this is going to be our first increase. You can tell it's an increase because there's 2 V's. There's 1 V and there's 2 V's into one space. You can see another increase above it. 1 V, 2 V's. And this is just a regular single crochet, just 1 V into one space. So you want to find the first increase that you made right there and sew this on using the stitches from either side of that increase. So if you find this increase, go to the stitch to the right here. That's going to be where the first part of the beak is sewn on. And then if you go 1 stitch to the left of that, that's where the second half of the bird beak is going to be sewn on. So I'm going to thread that on a needle like that, and then pull that through. And now you want to take both these ends and you want to pull them just tight enough so that the knot gets pulled through the inside. There's the second knot and the first knot. And then we can double knot this on the inside. Go 1 and 2. Cut it nice and close. And there we have our bird beak sewn on. Next, we want to add our eyes. And I'm going to be using 6mm eyes for this part, which are going to be slightly smaller than the ones we use for the head. And for the bird eyes, I like to go 1 stitch over from each side of this bird beak. So 1 stitch over to the right, it's going to be right here. And then 1 stitch over to the left is going to be right there. And then we can just lock them in place on the inside. There's 1 and 2. Okay. And that's going to be how to add the face of our head, our burb. Now we can pull the stitch marker back out. Oh, actually, no, we can keep the stitch marker and get our yarn ready. We can continue on in our rounds. We are now on to round 9. For round 9, we're going to be doing 11 single crochets and then an invisible decrease. And then 2 single crochets, another invisible decrease. And then 2 more single crochets and 1 final invisible decrease. That's going to bring you down from 21 stitches to 18 stitches. So let's get that started. 11 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then an invisible decrease. So we go front loop. Oh, I'm sorry. This is an invisible decrease. I haven't explained that yet. So for an invisible decrease, we're going to go into the front loops only of the next 2 stitches. So you want to go front loop, and then you want to do a single crochet into those front loops. So we yarn over, pull through both of those front loops, then yarn over again, and pull through 2 for a single crochet. Okay, so that's an invisible decrease. We'll do another one in just a second. So we did 11 single crochets and an invisible decrease. Now we want 2 single crochets, 1, 2, and then another invisible decrease. So front loop, invisible decrease. Okay, 2 more single crochets and then 1 last invisible decrease. So 1 single crochet, 2, we'll pull our stitch marker out and do our last invisible decrease, front loop, and front loop, and invisible decrease, like that. Pull our stitch marker out, or loop out, and put our stitch marker in there. And now you should have 18 stitches around for your burb. Okay, Now we're on to round 10. For round 10, we're going to do 1 single crochet and then an invisible decrease. So front loop, single crochet. And we'll repeat that process of 1 single crochet, 1 invisible decrease 6 times total. So let's do our second repeat. 1, and then an invisible decrease. Front loop, single crochet. There's our second repeat. Let's do our third. Single crochet, front loop, invisible decrease. And this is going to bring you up or down from 18 stitches to 12 stitches. So by the end of this round, we should only have 12 stitches around. Okay. Single crochet, invisible decrease. Oops. Front loop, boom. And last one, single crochet, and then our last invisible decrease. We'll pull the stitch marker out first and go front loop, and there we go. Pull the stitch marker out. There we go. And lock it into place. All right, and that's going to be the end of round 10. You should only have 12 stitches around now. It's pretty small on the inside. So now is our time where we want to add our wings and tail. So let's start with our tail, because I find that's the easiest one to place. And you should have 2 ends here, one coming out straight through the center and one coming out through one of the sides. We'll start by threading the center onto our needle. And then on the back of our piece, we want to find that first invisible decrease, the middle invisible decrease, second visible decrease, which is in the middle of the back right there. You want to go right through the top of that invisible decrease. That's going to be, if you want to look through the top there, it's going to almost be exactly in the center of your piece right there. So we're going to go ahead and pull through that. You can go up 1 more stitch if you'd like, if you really like the tail to be like facing up, but I kind of like it like out a little bit, up, so it's like that. So first we're going to thread it through there and pull it through. Next, you want to take this other end and thread that on our needle. And under the stitch that you just went into, you want to go through the right side right there and come out through the left. And then go down through the stitch on the last stitch on your tail, like this. Make sure to go under both of these loops. Then back into where you came out and out through where you came in, like that. And we can actually pull this nice and tight now. And finally, you want to go through both loops of this last stitch on the tail and then in through where you came out. Like that. Pull it nice and tight, and then pull this tail end nice and tight, and double knot these 2 ends on the inside of your piece. There's 1. And 2. Cut the yarn. Throw that to the side. And now we have our tail sewn on. Okay, next up we want to sew on the wings on either side. So we'll take our wings, and there's going to be a right and a left wing, don't forget about that. And one wing, well, let's see, so this one is goes to this side. This one goes over to this side. And you can kind of see it because you'll see where the front is with those V's. Those are going to be facing forward. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with this side. And I'm going to start by threading this middle end. And there's going to be 3 stitches that we want to use for each of the wings to sew it on. If you go down directly from the eye, 3 rounds, 1, 2, 3, right here, it's going to be, we're going to work the wings. Let's make sure that's the right spot. Yeah, that's pretty good. So we're going to go, that's going to be 1, and then 2, and then 3 is going to be directly up from that. You can also go a little bit further out. 3 will be right there. But we're going to go 1, 2, 3, a little V. Boom, 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 or maybe an L. We're going to go through that top one for the first part with this inside. And then with the other end, we're going to go in through the first stitch and come out through the second stitch, and then go down through a space in between these two tail ends, like right here, and then down through where we came out and out through where we came in, like that. Once you're through those with your needle, we can pull it a little tighter and then go ahead and do it. Make sure that tail end's pulled up there. And then finally, we'll go in through the top of our stitch right there, and then in through our piece. So I like going under both loops of that wing, then in through the body, like that. And then I can pull both these tail ends, and we can double knot this on the inside. One and two. Okay, now we can go ahead and cut it nice and close. And I'll sew on the other wing on the other side. So we're going to start by threading the middle. And our 3 stitches on the opposite side, we'll go straight down from the eye. Let's go right here. We're going to go, actually let's go 1 stitch over it right there, because I think I sewed this one on a little bit further over than I normally do. I think I normally go right under the eye if I can, but I don't think it's going to look bad. I think it's actually going to look pretty good. So let's go ahead and do the same thing on this side. So 1, 2, and then 3 will be up, so it'll be like that. So we'll start with the top one for the middle part of our wing, and then we'll thread the other end, and we're going to do the same thing that we did on the opposite wing, going the opposite way. So we'll go through right here, and then out through right there. And then we're going to go through the top of our wing right here, come out, and then out through where we just went in. Okay. And then we're going to go through both loops of the very edge of the wing, like that, go like that, and then back through that same stitch, out through the inside, in through the outside. What am I talking about? And then we're going to pull both of these tail ends nice and tight and double knot it on the inside. I hope I explained that well. Please let me know if you have any questions here. I know it can be a little bit complicated. Maybe watch it on 2 times or 1 times the speed, or half speed, or whatever, to watch it a little bit slower if you need some help like figuring out the exact stitches to go through. And then the last bit that we want to sew on before we finish up our little seagull here, you can see how our wings are sewn on there. We got our tail on there, and now we want to put on the legs right on the front. So I'm going to take my legs here. We got so many little threads that we're going to need to use to stuff our piece up with. We're going to take our little feet here, and again, there's a top and a bottom. We want this part to be facing upwards on our body, and we want it to be right there. So we're going to go in through this round just above where we're out, and just like directly parallel to the eye. We want one end through here and then one end through the stitch over. Start with this stitch. And we're going to thread on this end of our foot first so that it's sewn on the right way. And then one stitch over right here. Thread the other end of our stitch onto our needle and then pull it through. And now we can pull it through just enough so that the knots pull through on the feet. So you see that knot just barely pulling through there. Let's do the same one over here and then double knot this on the inside. 1 and 2. Okay, so that's one foot done. Let's do the other foot. Follow down all the way down from the eye. We'll go through there and through here. So let's start on this side. Thread it on the needle. Pull that needle through. Make sure it goes around the right parts. Then the next stitch over from that. Thread that on a needle. And pull through. And we'll just do the same thing, where we'll pull it just tight enough so that the knots just pull through. So there's one knot, and then 2 knots, and then double knot that on the inside. 1. Yikes. There we go. And 2. Okay, so now we have everything sewn on. We just need to finish our piece. Now before I continue on, I do want to stuff it just a little bit, just so that we can see those eyes on the inside there. We just want to get just over those eyes with this stuffing. So I'm just going to go in, try to get above the eyes with the stuffing, because it can be kind of hard to stuff it above the eyes if you don't get into it right now before we do our last round. Okay, let's get our crochet hook in there and make our last round. We're going to go ahead and remove our stitch marker there. And there we go. Okay, so for our last round, we're going to do a sharp decrease into each stitch around, 6 sharp decreases total. For a sharp decrease, we're going to go in through the next stitch, through both loops like that, in through the top of the next stitch, yarn over, and pull through. Then we're going to go into the next stitch right here, yarn over with the second loop and pull that through, and then pull that second loop through the 2 on the hook like that. We're going to repeat that all the way around. So there's 1, let's do another one, into the next stitch, pull through, into the next stitch right here. There's a and pull through and pull through 2. There's 2. Let's do another one. There's 1, 2, pull the second one through. And there's our third. 6 total. There's 4. 5, and our last one right here. Going to be 6. Now we can cut the yarn. You just want enough to sew it closed and pull it all the way through. And now before we sew it closed, we need to stuff it up a little bit. Now I like using our little tail ends here to try to stuff up as much as I can with those tail ends. I'm going to actually cut these tail ends in half, just bunch them up and then cut them to make them more manageable. And then we're just going to go ahead and stuff this into the bottom. I like using the bottom of my crochet hook to help me get that in there. It can be very tricky to add threads at this point in the pattern. And if you are having some trouble, you can use something a little bit smaller. Maybe use a pencil with a rubber end. That might help you guide it in there. Or you can also use a stick like this to help guide it in. That also makes it a little bit easier to do. Like a little skewer. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's get these last little bits in there. This last little bit. Okay, and then the last bit, I would just want to add just a little bit of regular stuffing just in the base of it, just so that it fills in the gaps, because the yarn kind of makes it like, it doesn't really fill the little spaces up as well. So we fill that up with that extra stuffing. And then the very last thing you want to do is take our magnets, place it straight into the bottom right there, and then we can sew it closed with those magnets on the inside. To sew it closed, we'll thread our needle onto the end of the yarn. And I like to do this to sew it closed. I like to go into the front loops only of all of the stitches around and then pull it tight. So we'll go through the front loops of all these stitches. One front loop, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, oops. And then let's just do this last bit right here just for good luck. And then we could just pull it nice and tight like that. Closes the end up. I like to go straight through the center and then out through somewhere on the back. Let's try to go like under this wing. Pull it through. And then I'll go ahead and cut it nice and close like so. Okay. All right, then we have our burb done. Now let's add just a little tiny bit of stuffing on the inside of our head, because it can get a little deflated there if you don't add a little bit of stuffing in the head. Just a little bit. Make sure to go over the eyes. And then we can place this on the top. The way I like to place it on the head is I like to go under the birb beak like that, and then slide it on the back right there, and then twist it. Moment of truth. And there we go. We have our seagull done. Looks like he has his eyes on some food right now. He's like, oh, I want to eat that food. Pretty great. I am super happy with that. Oh my gosh, I love those big eyes. All right, well, thank you so much for watching this video and either purchasing it or being a Club Crochet member. If you want to check out more, I have a bunch more bird patterns. We have little owls. There is a turkey, a duck. Of course, we've got a pigeon. And the pigeon also teaches you how to make this little extra thread that if you pull it, it looks like he's pooping, which I really like. And there's some other ones too. I think soon there's going to be a hummingbird. And I feel like I'm forgetting one, but I can't remember what it is. Well, I'll remember it later, and I'll be like, "Oh no, I forgot about that one." But soon there's going to be a hummingbird. There's going to be, I've got this macaw that I'm working on a pattern for, and a flamingo that I'm working on a pattern for. So yeah. Anyhow, thank you so much again for watching. Pasta la pizza, happy hooking, and I'll see you soon. Bye. You want to say bye, little seagull buddy?